Hey, welcome to 12 Tone. I really didn't want to have to do this again, not so soon after Chris Cornell, but Linkin Park was an important part of my teenage years, and Chester Bennington's death, it hurt, and I'd like to pay tribute to him and his work by breaking down one of Linkin Park's most famous songs, What I've Done. It starts like this. And it's a fairly straightforward riff. It all hinges on this E flat. The rest of it is just alternating between the root and the fifth, which are two of the most powerful notes in the key, but just playing them back and forth would get boring fast, so they break it up with a flat 6, creating an effect called a neighboring tone, where you start on one note, step away, then step right back. It's a small change, but a powerful one. The flat 6 plays a large role in defining the feel of the minor scale, so it gives the section a lot more emotional weight without losing its simplicity. After a couple bars, the piano starts playing a bass line, and this gives us our first glimpse into the harmony. There's no actual chords yet, but we've at least got the roots, G, B flat, F, and C. And since we know we're in G minor, we can take some guesses at what these chords would be if they were there. The chords in that scale built off those roots are G minor, B flat major, F major, and C minor, and looking ahead to other sections, we can see that that's probably what's happening here. So let's look at those chords. My first instinct would be to use functional harmony, which is the idea that different chords in a key have predefined functions or jobs to do. It can be a bit complicated in minor, but let's give it a shot. G minor is the one chord, which has what's called tonic function, meaning it's at rest. B flat major is the flat 3, which is a little more ambiguous. It could be tonic, or it could have what's called subdominant function, which introduces some instability to help move the progression forward. Then we get to F major, the flat 7, which can sometimes have dominant function, meaning it points you back home to the tonic, but it can also have subdominant function too. And then C minor, the 4 chord, is almost always subdominant. So we have a tonic chord, then 3 subdominant ones. That's not a very strong functional progression. But functional harmony is just one approach, and I don't think it's the right one here. I think the secret to this progression lies in the root movement. If we start on the B flat, we have this line, which is all descending perfect fourths. This is reminiscent of a fairly common technique where the chords just keep descending by thirds, but using fourths instead gives it a bit more edge because they're a little less connected. Descending fourths can also carry a bit of harmonic weight in what's often called a plagal cadence or a subdominant resolution. Basically, while the strongest sense of resolution comes from dominant function chords like the 5 chord, subdominant function chords can actually provide a soft resolution of their own. They're kinda like dominant resolutions in reverse, and the song is just chaining them together relentlessly to create a sense of motion without much in the way of finality. And that's pretty much it. These are the chords for like 95% of the song. The only places it changes are the pre-chorus, which uses an E flat chord and an F chord to sort of walk back up to the root of G, and the beginning and end of the solo, which use these 4 chords as a more intense version of that walk-up idea. So if the harmony isn't changing, why doesn't the song get boring? How does it keep its forward momentum if it's just the same 4 chords? It all comes down to 2 important tools, dynamics and textures. Let's start with the easier one. Dynamics is a fancy word for volume. Well, not exactly. It's technically more about how hard you're playing, which has lots of different effects on the sound, but basically higher dynamics means louder music, and What I've Done is full of great examples. Compare the drums from the verse the chorus. It's the same basic rhythm, but in the chorus he's hitting everything harder. The whole song is full of sudden dynamic shifts. The jumps up help propel you forward, and when it drops back down, it gives you some time to rest before the next big section. But it's not just the dynamics that are changing, the instruments are too. In the first verse, we have a fairly sparse texture with mostly just the piano and drums. When the chorus kicks in, though, suddenly we've added 2 guitars and a bass, and the piano has all but disappeared. This texture change from a stripped-down piano section to a full rock band mirrors the dynamic shift and helps lift the section up further. Anyway, they combine these ingredients in various ways until eventually we get to my favorite part of the song, the outro. The chords again stay the same, but we see this new background vocal line appear. There's a couple parts to it, but it's basically a harmonized version of this melody. It adds yet another texture just as the song is wrapping up. Then the rest of the band stops and the new melody continues, except this time it doesn't quite finish. It stops a little early, which leaves it hanging, wanting to resolve forever. The song never really ends, it just lets go. And that's that. Picking just one song for this was difficult because over the years Linkin Park has had so many different sounds. They were constantly reinventing themselves, experimenting with new techniques and ideas, and they managed to sound like so many things while still always sounding like Linkin Park. Chester's voice and his lyrics were a huge part of that. He was a great artist, and he will be missed. Anyway, thanks for watching, and thanks to Patreon patron Kaylor Hodges for suggesting this song. If you'd like to see your favorite song analyzed, just head on over to Patreon and pledge at any level. You can also check out our store, join our mailing list, like, share, comment, subscribe, and keep on rockin'.